Good morning. Good morning. All right, that sounds more like a city that's getting ready to celebrate with the big parade on next Thursday. Yeah. Councilman, I'm going to put this on Councilman Thomas. Councilman Thomas, since you are the most athletic in the city council, some may question that, but I don't. We are going to see if we can get some additional buses for the parade. So we know some of the citizens would like to be a part of that process too. All right? I know that's a heavy lift for you, sir.
We need them.
And since we're going to be starting in Councilman Johnson's district, I'm sure that he has a couple of phone numbers down there. And Councilman Johnson, thank you so much, sir. Yeah, Councilman, we really appreciate you helping us celebrate this awesome opportunity that we have. Go Birds. You want to wing it? Want to rock it? Let's get it in. Rock it now? Let's rock it. Eagles fly on the road to victory. Fly, eagles fly, in the next 1, 2, 3. And I, take them all to please don't fly. Fly, eagles fly, on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! That's what I'm talking about. All right, I guess it's time to go to work. Okay. Good morning, everybody. We are obviously really excited about the possibilities and the likelihood that we will be in a very, very special place Sunday night. So we're going to get kicked off. I note that the hour's come. We have a quorum, so we're going to get started. To give our invocation this morning, the chair will recognize the Imam Kenneth Nuruddin of the Philadelphia Masjid. He is here today as the guest of Councilman Jones. I would ask all guests and visitors to please rise. Imam.
To the City Council and to we the people of Philadelphia, let us all begin by calling on the Creator of all of us. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most compassionate, all the praise belongs to God, the Lord of all the worlds. Almighty God, we ask you to guide our council leaders in a manner that you have guided wise leaders in the past. We ask you to preserve their health and their efforts so that they can succeed. We ask you to expand their networks so that they can be all-inclusive of we the people, and we ask you to bless them with the blessings that can come only from you. And we ask you to save them and protect them from the setbacks and the harm that can come to leadership. Our Lord, we the people, the City Council as well as the common people, we ask and we seek your protection from the anxiety of the acute issues that we face, such as gun violence. We seek protection from you and help from you to overcome the chronic conditions that befall all of us in the city. We seek help and protection from you from having the inability to face the challenges that we have or the lack of commitment. We seek refuge and protection in you from being overcome by our obligations and duties and the oppression of men. Almighty God, bestow upon the leadership and city council the guidance and the wisdom and the knowledge that will make them successful, and bestow upon us, the common people, access to that information so we can be better supportive of the good that they do. We ask that you bless them and give them the adequate resources, both financial and material, reminding them that the greatest resource exists among we the people. So we ask that you give them access to all the resources that are necessary for them to succeed, and we ask that you protect them and you bless them and you give them the ability to perform their duties in a manner that's pleasing to you and in a manner that is acceptable to we the people. Amen. Amen. Now, as a personal aside, I would like to thank the council, president, and the council members for their warm welcome. I want to thank my friend Councilman Jones for his invitation. But I want you to know a precedent has already been set. I was asked to give the invocation at the State Senate in 2018 by Senator Anthony Williams. And that was the same week that the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Go Eagles!
Thank you so much, Iman. Council will be at ease. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here today to give us some spiritual guidance. And the next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 2nd, 2023, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 2nd, 2023 be approved.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 2nd, 2023 stand approved. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. And the journal is approved. And our next order of business is a request for leave of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the members of council, there are no requests for leaves of absence today.
Chair thanks the gentleman. And the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion concerning certain legislative matters that may arise during the course of today's council session that were not listed calendar circulated prior to today's session.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that any of the following matters, if considered today, may be added to the agenda for this session of council, and as required by law, subsequently published on an amended agenda after the consideration of those matters. Resolutions authorizing hearings, amendments to bills on first reading, the consideration of a bill vetoed by or recalled from the mayor, amendments to bills recalled from the mayor, resolutions taking substantive actions to be voted on in this session, a motion to withdraw a bill or resolution that is not on the calendar, and a motion placing a bill or resolution on or returning a bill or resolution from the suspension calendar that is not listed on today's calendar. The purpose of this motion is to provide the public with notice concerning possible actions by council that arose too late to be included in the calendar that was published prior to today's session. Go Birds.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the legislative matters stated by Councilman Squilla may be added to the agenda for today should those matters arise during the course of the council session. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Good morning. Thank you, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. As the chair of the Education Committee, one of the first things I did was host a hearing around Act 158 to see where we are as it relates to young people graduating from high school. I'm so proud of my council colleagues for stepping up to the plate, and I don't want to start naming council members because I don't want to miss anybody, but so many council members have decided to open up their office to take on high school interns to allow young people to get the credit that they need in order to graduate from high school. And this is just another example of this legislative body going over and beyond the call of duty to make sure that the constituents of Philadelphia are being served. So can we just take a moment to welcome all of the young people who are in their council session for the first time today because they're completing their Act 158 internship requirement. Can you please stand up? Thank you, colleagues, for stepping up to the plate, and let's make sure that these young people have an experience in council that they'll never forget. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilman. And welcome all. We really appreciate you being here and look forward to working with you. And our next order of business is communications. I would ask the clerk to please read the messages from the mayor or any other communications that he may have in his possession.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, I am pleased to advise you that on February 8, 2023, I signed the following bills which were passed by Council at its session on January 26, 2023. Bill number 220770 and Bill number 220942. And I am transmitting for the consideration of your honorable body an ordinance constituting the 27th supplemental ordinance to the restated General Water and Wastewater Revenue Bond Ordinance of 1989 as supplemented, authorizing the bond committee to issue and sell one or more series or subseries of tax-exempt or taxable water and wastewater revenue bonds and revenue refunding bonds, authorizing agreements to provide credit enhancement or payment of liquidity sources or any combination of the foregoing for such bonds, providing that such bonds shall bear interest at fixed or variable rates, determining the sufficiency of pledged project revenues, and authorizing the Director of Finance to take certain actions with regard to the sale of such bonds. And an ordinance authorizing the Procurement Commissioner on behalf of the City to enter into a concession agreement with Slice Wireless Solutions Incorporated for the operation, maintenance, and expansion of a neutral host radio, cellular, and Wi-Fi system and other wireless services, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. And our next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions, and I would ask the clerk to please read the titles of the legislation that's being offered by our members today.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers 3 resolutions. On behalf of Council President Clark, a non-privileged resolution also naming the 700 block of North Broad Street between Fairmount Avenue and Brown Street, Reverend Dr. Herbert H. Lusk II Way. Mr. President, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson would like to be recognized for a motion on this resolution.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit consideration of this resolution at today's session of council.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution will be on today's calendar.
And on her own behalf, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers a privileged resolution honoring the African American Children's Book Project on the occasion of its 31st annual African American Children's Book Fair.
Today's calendar.
And a privileged resolution honoring and celebrating Philadelphia Eagles season sports performance associate Autumn Lockwood, the first black woman to coach in the Super Bowl.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President and colleagues. I would like to thank each of you for co-sponsoring my resolution honoring the African American Children's Book Project on the occasion of its 31st annual African American Children's Book Fair. Founded in 1992 by Vanessa Lloyd Scombati, the African American Children's Book Fair was created to promote and preserve children's literature written by and about Black Americans. It is the oldest and largest single-day event for African American children's books in the country, bringing out more than 3,500 attendees each year. And best of all, it is free to attend. At the fair, attendees will be able to connect with and support nearly 40 literary creators. Events like the African American Children's Book Fair are so pivotal, especially for our children, and I can say that now as a mother. From grades K through third grade, they are learning to read. Fourth grade on, they are reading to learn. So this experience is pivotal for our young people. I want to take a moment to recognize and thank Vanessa Lloyd Scambati, who is the founder and CEO of the African American Children's Book Project, for bringing this book fair to life and for her steadfastness, for her dedication to this work for so many years. And as I call your name, please stand. So Vanessa, please stand. Our PICO family for their belief and support in this project, in the spirit of our friend Ed McBride, Liz, Tony, Doug, Michelle, Ramona, Kia, Keith, Jose, all of them are here with us today. And one of the featured authors, who is a New York Times best-selling author and National Book Awardee nominee, Ibi Zabai. In closing, I want to encourage my colleagues and the public to attend the 31st Annual African American Children's Book Fair, taking place from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. this Saturday, February 11th, at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. My office will be in attendance, and I hope you can join us as we uplift the African American Children's Book Fair.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
We also have Wells Fargo with us as well, one of the sponsors of the African American Children's Book Fair. Please stand. Secondly, Council President, as we prepare for Super Bowl Sunday and to cheer on our Philadelphia Eagles, as the cousin of Emlyn Tennell, who was the first African American inducted into the Football Hall of Fame, I am pleased to offer a resolution honoring Autumn Lockwood. On Sunday, Autumn will make history as the first Black woman to coach in the Super Bowl. She will also become the fourth woman overall to coach in a Super Bowl game. Since August of 2022, Autumn has served as a seasonal sports performance associate with the Philadelphia Eagles. She is responsible for helping our players maximize their performance potential and finding ways for them to get stronger, faster, and be able to move efficiently. These are all the skills that we need to bring the Lombardi Trophy back to Philadelphia. As a woman of first myself, I know from experience the hard work that Autumn put in to make it to this point in her career, and particularly in the NFL. And I'm certain that she was inspired by many barrier-breaking women who came before her. Women like Jennifer Welter, who in 2015 became the first woman coach in NFL history. Like Colette V. Smith, who in 2017 became the first Black woman coach of any NFL team. And women like Jennifer King, who in 2021 became the first Black woman to become a full-time coach in the NFL. Autumn's accomplishments are a reminder to young Black women everywhere that there is no glass ceiling that cannot be shattered. So colleagues, please join me in congratulating Autumn Lockwood on this career-defining moment. Autumn, we all wish you the best of luck. And go Eagles!
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. Mr. Decker, read the last resolution. I didn't refer it.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson also offers a privilege resolution honoring and celebrating Philadelphia Eagles season sports performance associate Autumn Lockwood, the first Black woman to coach in the Super Bowl.
Thank you. Today's calendar.
Councilman Thomas offers 2 resolutions. A privileged resolution honoring and congratulating the Champion of the Week, Monica Maraglio, for her work at company Girl Build, which trains women on how to renovate, design, and finance their own home improvement projects.
Today's calendar. Councilwoman, did you want to be recognized again? Oh. You good? Okay. Today's calendar. Go ahead, Mr. Durr.
And a non-privileged resolution expressing the Philadelphia City Council's support for the graduate student workers at Temple University and urging Temple University to return to the table and bargain a fair and equitable contract with its graduate student workers. Mr.
Chair
President.
recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Good morning again, colleagues. Thank you, Council President. Unfortunately, with all the great news that's going on and happening here in Council and across the city, there's still some dark marks, and this, unfortunately, is one of them. I want to first say thank you to my colleagues, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, Gaudier, Driscoll, Vaughn, Harity, Lozada, Bass, and Brooks for co-sponsoring this resolution. And I think that I speak for all of the members of Council when we express our concern, not only over the negotiations that's taking place, but some of the things that we found out yesterday as it relates to young people's tuition essentially being suspended for just using their voice and standing up for what they felt like was right. As a legislative body, we're very concerned. This is something that I feel like is alarming, and clearly based on the number of co-sponsors and the number of supports from elected officials all across the city, really all across the Commonwealth, because we've seen even federal partners talk about this particular issue that's extremely alarming. So we're urging and asking Temple to return to the negotiating table, give those young people a fair wage, a quality opportunity to earn a living while they get their degree. Because look, at the end of the day, as someone who earned my master's degree, you know, I understand firsthand how difficult it is to try to put yourself in a position to educate yourself, so you in turn could be not just a better asset to society, but also be an asset to the next generation of young people walking through those collegiate walls that's looking to make a difference and change the world. So at the end of the day, when we pay those young people, they pay society. Thank you, Council President, and thank you, colleagues, for your support.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Vaughn.
I just would like to add to Councilman Thomas's comments that yes, Temple is trying to work out that situation, but we're talking about graduate students that don't usually stay. We're also talking about their benefit package, where they're trying to increase their salaries by 50%. Hell, I would like to have mine increased as well by 50%. And then I'm also been informed that they don't pay into their insurance package. That is another item that is being negotiated. And they want that insurance to not just cover the individual, but their spouse and their children. So as Councilman Thomas stated, I think that they need to just get to the table and negotiate on what exactly is possible to make this problem go away. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That will be on next week's calendar.
Councilman Jones offers 5 resolutions. On behalf of Council President Clark, a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1736 North 22nd Street, located in the 5th Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
And on his own behalf, a privileged resolution congratulating the Philadelphia Eagles on their National Football Conference championship win, and challenging the City Council of Kansas City to a bet that the Eagles will beat the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57.
Councilman Jones. First, Councilman, before you say that, did we ever send those?
Yes, we did. We honor our bets.
We sent our cheesesteaks
Yeah,
out
we
to...
sent cheesesteaks
out to Houston.
Tasty cakes down. Unfortunately, as we lost it. But we don't intend to lose this bet.
Not going to happen. Okay.
So I'm going to yield this moment to the coach of council, Member Thomas, to make this bet to Kansas City.
Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader, and thank you, Council President. I think I'm on fire this morning. So let's continue to send that energy and that warm wealth to our Philadelphia Eagles. And so we are betting the city of Kansas City, and I don't know, Councilmember O'Neill, if we would have known this a little while back when we were out in Kansas City for NLC, we might have had some different energy towards that Kansas City legislative body out there. But nonetheless, we're going to be asking the Kansas City City Council and leaders in Kansas City, after we win on Sunday, to make a donation to the Eagles Autism Foundation. At the end of the day, we're always fighting for those that are most in need, and this is another example of how the city of Kansas City can help us with that fight after we kick their butt on Sunday. And just in case we don't, we will be making a donation to Travis Kelce's 87 and Running Foundation. So the bet is out there. We're extremely excited about next Sunday. Go Birds.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Councilman Jones and Councilman Thomas. Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the Joint City Council Committees on Public Safety and Education to hold public hearings to examine the status of capital programs for infrastructure repair, as well as for toxic hazard remediation in Philadelphia's public schools.
Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the Joint City Council Committees on Public Safety and Education to hold public hearings to examine the School District of Philadelphia's use of in-school and out-of-school suspension, as well as other disciplinary tactics to understand what actions merit such a penalty.
Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the Joint City Council Committees on Public Safety and Education to hold public hearings to examine statistics for in-school violence protocols, student-to-student violence, parent-to-parent violence, and teacher safety.
Today's calendar.
Councilman Johnson offers 3 resolutions. A privilege resolution honoring and recognizing Chris DeShields, a SEPTA bus operator, for his heroism and the bravery he exhibited while stopping a carjacking and protecting his fellow citizens.
Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities to hold public hearings on the status of Hilco Redevelopment Partners' proposed Bellwether District Development Project, formerly known as the Sunoco Refinery site.
Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution honoring the Philadelphia artist King Saladin for his artistic contributions to Philadelphia and for his community advocacy through his foundation, Create, Motivate, Inspire.
Today's calendar.
Councilwoman Brooks offers a privilege resolution honoring and recognizing Yvette Denise Jones, a caring educator, fierce advocate, and a lifelong community builder who has tirelessly fought for the children, teachers, and parents of Philadelphia and for schools that meet the needs of the communities that they serve.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
I am proud to honor Ms. Yvette Denise Jones today as part of my series this month celebrating influential Black women in Philadelphia. Ms. Yvette is a caring educator, an advocate, a community builder, and throughout her life, she has been a relentless champion for young people, educators, and caregivers. Ms. Yvette served more than a decade as a teacher, worked for the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, where she was a powerful voice for teachers, and also the founding member of PCAPS, Parents Coalition Advocating for Public Schools. In her years of advocacy, Ms. Yvette demonstrated fierce love and care for all those around her. She chose to teach in Philadelphia Public Schools in North Philadelphia and give back and work in our own community. She was also a forceful advocate for stopping the takeover of Still Elementary, where she used to teach, helping to mobilize parents and teachers and that community she served in. And that's where I met Miss Yvette. She has been a mentor and a supporter of me when I was just a parent, just fighting for what's right in my school. When everyone told me that it was impossible, I didn't have enough people, I didn't know the right folks, Miss Yvette helped me organize my community, and that's one of the biggest fights that I ever won, and it kind of pushed me into wanting to be a city council member for the city of Philadelphia. So I want to thank Miss Yvette for always being an example of what is possible when we put our arms together in a community and we support our children and our young people and our parents regardless. And I want to thank her for her years of service and recognize her for just all the inspiration that she has done for me and other parents in Nicetown, Tioga, and Erie area, because she has been the epitome of what it means to be a leader. And so often as black women don't get our kudos right now. So I thought it not robbery to recognize her for being my mentor and my supporter in one of the roughest times in my life. And I just want her to stand up and let her know that I love you, Miss Yvette. I would not be here today without Miss Yvette's support. So thank you, Council President, for giving me this moment. And thank you, Miss Yvette, for always being there for me.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That will be on today's calendar.
Councilwoman Gauthier offers one bill and two resolutions. Entitled an ordinance authorizing the installation, ownership, and maintenance of various encroachments in the vicinity of 3317 through 33 Chestnut Street.
Was that
An ordinance, Mr. President.
referred to committee?
And a non-privileged resolution also naming 53rd Street between Parish Street and Westminster Avenue, Ethel Hedgeman Lyle Way. Mr. President, Councilwoman Gauthier would like to be recognized for a motion on this resolution.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit consideration of the resolution also naming 53rd Street at today's session of council.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carried. That will be on today's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fee simple title to 4993 West Girard Avenue in the 3rd Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Squilla offers two bills and one resolution. On behalf of Council President Clark, an ordinance constituting the 27th supplemental ordinance to the restated general water and wastewater revenue bond ordinance of 1989 is supplemented, authorizing the bond committee to issue and sell one or more series or subseries of tax-exempt or taxable water and wastewater revenue bonds.
For the committee.
And on his own behalf, an ordinance continuing a neighborhood improvement district known as the Northern Liberties Business Improvement District.
For the committee.
And a non-privileged resolution initiating action to continue a neighborhood improvement district known as the Northern Liberties Business Improvement District.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman O offers one bill and one resolution. Entitled an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, providing for the creation of a music office as approved by resolution of the City Council, fixing the date of a special election for such purpose, prescribing the form of ballot question to be voted on, and authorizing the appropriate officers to publish notice and to make arrangements for the special election.
For the committee.
And a non-privileged resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, providing for the creation of a music office and providing for the submission of the amendment to the electors of Philadelphia.
For the committee.
There are no other bills or resolutions being offered today by the members, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes the introduction of bills and resolutions. And our next order of business is consideration of the calendar. I know that the bills, I'm sorry, I got to go committees. The next order of business is report from committees. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson for a report from the Committee on Law and Government.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Law and Government reports out 4 bills and 3 resolutions with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Law and Government, to which is referred Bill number 220733, entitled, an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to change the requirements for contributions and minimum balance of the Budget Stabilization Reserve and make other technical changes. And Bill number 220864, entitled an ordinance providing for the submission of the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of the proposal set forth in a resolution approved by Council, an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter relating to the creation of a division of workforce solutions within the Department of Commerce to promote workforce development activities serving Philadelphians seeking jobs and training opportunities in the public or private sectors. And Bill number 220865, entitled an ordinance amending Title 18 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Commerce, by adding a new chapter entitled Workforce Development Activity and Reporting to promote workforce development activity and to require the Department of Commerce to report to Council certain aggregate information regarding employment rates and training opportunities, and to report on assessments of the economic impact of the city's workforce development programs. And Bill number 230004, entitled An Ordinance Providing for the Submission of the Qualified Electors of the City of Philadelphia of the proposals set forth in a resolution approved by Council, proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter relating to civil service exemptions for staff of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission. And Resolution number 220743, entitled A Resolution Proposing an Amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, changing the requirement for contributions and minimum balance of the Budget Stabilization Reserve and making other technical changes. And Resolution number 220872, entitled A Resolution Proposing an Amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to create the Division of Workforce Solutions within the Department of Commerce to promote workforce development activity, serving Philadelphians seeking jobs and training opportunities in the public or private sectors. And Resolution number 230016, entitled A Resolution Proposing an Amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to provide for exemption from civil service for staff of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, and providing for the submission of the amendment to the electors of Philadelphia. Respectfully reports it as considered and amended the same, and returns the attached bills and resolutions to Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bill numbers 220733, 220864, 220865, and 230004.
Thank you. It is moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit the first reading this day of bills number 220733, 220864, 220865, and 230004. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Resolution number 220743, 220872, 230016 will be placed on the final passage calendar at our next session of council. Chair now recognizes Councilman Squilla for a report from the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Commerce and Economic Development report one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
The Committee on Commerce and Economic Development, to which is referred Bill number 220244, entitled An Ordinance Amending Title 21 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Miscellaneous, by adding a new Chapter 213300 entitled Flag Raisings, to establish uniform standards for flag raising ceremonies, all under certain terms and conditions. Respectfully reports it as considered the same and returns the attached bill to Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading this day of bill number 220244.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit the first reading this day of bills number 220244. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Motion carries, and this bill will be on our first reading calendar today. That concludes our reports from committee, and our next order of business is the consideration of the calendar. I note that the bills just reported from committee with the suspension of the rules have been deemed to have their first reading. They will be on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. As there are no additional bills on the first reading calendar, the Chair recognizes Councilman Jones for the purpose of calling up resolutions and bills on our second reading and final passage calendar today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being brought up from second reading and final passage calendars today. Numbers 210434, 230062, 230063, 230068, 220689, 220690, 221036, 221037, and 221038. All other bills and resolutions are being held.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Before we consider the resolution and bills, we will have our public comment session. It will go as follows. Your public comment must concern matters on the second reading and final passage calendar for possible action at today's council session. All speakers must sign up in order to testify. If you've not already done so, you may do so now at the table outside of the council chambers with the Sergeant of Arms. Once you've signed up, you will be called in the order in which your name appears on the sign-up sheet. Today, we don't have ideal circumstances. Saying that to say that there's a significant volume of individuals that would like to testify. So to ensure that everybody has an opportunity, we will alter the time limit from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. So I would ask that you please adjust your testimony today to reflect a 2-minute time limit. In order to be fair, we're going to hold that time limit faithfully. Once you begin speaking, you will see a green light on the podium in front of you. When the light turns yellow, we will ask you to 30 seconds to conclude your remarks, and when the light turns red, we would ask you to please comply with the guidelines to conclude your remarks. I want to thank you very much. We do reserve the right to adjust repetitious comment on the same subject matter, but I don't think we'll have that issue today. So I first of all would like to thank you all so much for coming down and participating with your government in action, your ability to speak and testify on matters concerning not only this council but this city. So thank you very much for coming in. And with that, Mr. Decker, can you please read the first name on the list?
The first speaker, Mr. President, is Reginald Johnson, commenting on 230082.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Reginald C. Johnson, and I do honor and thankful for our chairman, President Clark, and this august body, all council persons present. I am privileged and honored to stand, being a very close friend and brother from another mother in the person of Reverend Dr. Herbert H. Less II. We just lost him a few months ago, and as you might know, it's still heavy on our hearts. Served over 20 years in city in West Philadelphia, and I stand in support of the resolution to name Broad Street the Herb H. Lusk II way between Fairmont and Brown Street. I have the privilege and honor to serve as the current executive director of People for People. Philadelphia is very historical, as we might know. People from all over the world visit our town because of our rich history. This city has produced so many people, particularly religious leaders, like Absalom Jones, St. Thomas Episcopal, Richard Allen, Mother Bethel AME, Harry Hooser, Zoar United Methodist, Charles Tindley, pastor and composer, Bishop Benjamin Smith, Deliverance Evangelistical, Bishop O.T. Jones, Holy Temple, Church of God in Christ, James Kirkland, Union Baptist Church, Leon Sullivan, Zion Baptist Church, William H. Gray, Bright Hope Baptist Church. In this cloud of witnesses, with so many others that I have not the opportunity to name, look down upon us with one addition, Herbert H. Lusk II. He has served our community in the 5th Councilmanic District for 40 years. He left the NFL to pursue the vision of the call on his life. In that, the city has been made better. The community, Francisville, Richard Allen projects has been made better with our charter school with 500 students, our early learning childhood center with kids from the infant up into K, pre-K.
Thank you.
And I know I'm a black preacher, I'm out of town, so let me go ahead and finish it. I say this, we ask this council a humble request, as God would say to Moses and Joshua, Jehovah Nissi, for us to remember with people coming down the pike, down the road, we shall remember Your action
Thank
will
you.
help us to remember H. Lust II.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Mr.
your
Johnson.
time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Layla Artis, commenting on 230082.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Leah Lusk Artis, and Reverend Dr. Herbert H. Lusk was my father. I stand today just seeking your hearts to turn in this matter in favor of Broad Street being named after my father. He served this city with all that he had. He gave everything in him. And when people say he bleed green, he really did. What I want you to remember is that a name can do two things. It can be a key or it can be a padlock. My father was more than a key. He was a bridge. He was a bridge from poverty to generational wealth. He was a bridge from despair to hope. He was a bridge to those that had no hope, to joy. So I just ask that you remember him and be in support of Broad Street being named Reverend Dr. Herbert H. Lusk II Way. Thank you for your time. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Herbert Lusk III.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President. Pastor Herb Lusk III here. Good morning, City Council members. And I'm not going to take a lot of your time. My father's resume speaks for itself. But I see that sign that's in this chamber, and it says it's a Philly thing. Herbert H. Lusk III. It's a Philly thing to name Broad Street Herb Lusk Way. You cannot mention economic development. You cannot mention enhancing families. You cannot mention revitalizing neighborhoods without saying the name Herb Lusk. It's a Philly thing for us to show the impact not only on Broad Street, but the impact that he's had all over this country. I don't waste more of your time, but I say this. Being as though this is Black History Month, one of my favorite heroes is Dr. Martin Luther King. One of his famous quotes was this: "In the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but we will remember the silence of our friends." As I stand before you today, you don't have to worry about that, about Herb Lusk, because his life has spoke volumes. God bless you all.
Thank you. Point of personal privilege. Just want to say thank you all so much. It's befitting that we do this today. At this homegoing service I talked about, Pastor Lusk carrying that ball for the Philadelphia Eagles. He has now carrying the ball for God to continue to serve his people. And after Sunday, he's going to carry a bigger ball, right? And a Super Bowl trophy, you know. So, guys, thank you so much on behalf of the pastor and the council. I mean, he's just been an awesome, awesome person, and more importantly, a very good friend to not only myself, but a whole lot of people in the city of Philadelphia. So thank you, and God bless you so much. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I also just want to take a moment of personal privilege to honor the life and legacy of the late, great Herb Lusk. And I met Mr. Herb Lusk through one of my big brother pastors, Anthony Sharkey Stevenson, who studied under him. And I remember most recently, you know, I was kind of distracted dealing with some other things in life. And even in the midst of that process, I have a bunch of pastors that pray for me in a group text. And I remember sending some messages out and him responding while he was in the hospital, saying, "Councilman, I'll be praying for you. Continue to keep your head up and continue to keep God first." And also how Pastor Herb Lusk, he was a man amongst men in terms of the issue of economic development. here in the city of Philadelphia. So with the help of Council President, on that North Corridor, right, a lot of people don't know, a lot of that property up there, that high value property, is owned by People to People Church, which was founded by the late, great Herb Luss. And I'm going to wrap up on this one part. One of the last text messages that I got from him was in 2021, and it was a total of 8 people shot, 1 person murdered, right? And it was on Father's Day. And on the Father's Day Sunday, the Enquirer article says, faith leaders struggle for answers to Philadelphia's gun violence. And he said, quote, "We think we are evolving, but we are going down." The Reverend Herb Luss, pastor at Greater Exodus Baptist Church, said following an overnight rally, which 8 people, in an overnight time where 8 people were shot and 1 person was murdered. And I don't think it was mentioned today, also Herb Luss was a former NFL player, so he didn't have to come back to North Philly and establish his roots. He could have just said, listen, I'm going to make this money, I'm going to move, I'm going to take my family with me. But he anchored himself right there on North Broad Street. So for me, his life also represented how, no matter how much we succeed in life, it's always about giving back. And for me, being a man of faith, that he always kept Christ first and foremost in his life. He led by that, right? And so to the family, just want to say congratulations on his honor. Is truly deserving, and long live the life of the Reverend Herb Luss. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Decker. Yeah.
The next speaker is Evelyn Sample Oates, commenting on 230096.
Morning.
Good morning, Council President and all members of City Council. It is great to be back in here and see all of you all. My name is Evelyn Sample Oates, and I'm especially excited as the daughter of an NFL Super Bowl champion who also wore green and white but another city. I know that come Monday morning we will bring that trophy back to Philadelphia. I am joined by 2 of my sorority sisters who are also on the list to testify. So I'm going to ask them to stand with me because they will not testify. We will speak with one heart and one mind. So Marcia Shepard Baker and Lorena Marshall Blake, if you could come and stand with me. Thank you, Council President. Professionally, I am the new Chief of Communications and Community Affairs for the Fairmount Park Conservancy. In my personal life, I am a 39-year member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Ms. Baker is a 38-year member, and Ms. Lorena Marshall Blake is a 32-year member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. We are lifetime members, and I am a charter member of Omega Mu Omega Chapter. Ms. Baker is a member of Rho Theta Omega Chapter, and Ms. Lorena Marshall Blake is a member of Omega Omega Chapter. I have served on the National Board of Directors and held several leadership positions in our beloved sorority. Today we come before you asking that you pass this resolution co-naming the 400 block of North 53rd Street, the Ethel Hedgeman Lyle Way. If I could ask all members of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority who may be in here today to please stand. In honor of our principal founder and the inspiration behind starting Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated 115 years ago, this remarkable woman gave birth to the first Greek letter organization for college-trained African-American women in the United States. Ethel Hedgeman Lyle was a student at Howard University when she founded Alpha Kappa Alpha on January 15, 1908, on the principles of service and sisterhood. After graduation, she moved to Philadelphia, teaching English in Thomas Durham and Chester Arthur schools, while pursuing graduate studies at both University of Penn and Temple University. She was a pillar in the Philadelphia community, active in both church and civic affairs. She was the founder of the Mothers Club of Philadelphia and a charter member of the West Philadelphia League of Women Voters. In 1937, she was appointed chairman of a committee of 100 women who played an important role in planning the celebration of the 150th anniversary of the Constitution of the United States. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority stands strong today with more than 350,000 members and over 1,000 chapters in 11 countries. We are dedicated to service to all mankind. The legacy of Ethel Hedgeman Lyle, a woman of faith and devotion, of courage and strength, of vision and foresight, a woman of conviction and determination, lives on in the hearts and minds of those who continue to serve Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And we especially thank Councilwoman Jamie Gauthier for bringing this resolution forward. In 4 weeks, over 7,000 women adorned in pink and green will come to Philadelphia to conduct the 95th North Atlantic Regional Conference, and we invite every one of you to come and join us. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Bridget Powell, commenting on 230063.
Bridget Powell. And here. Next speaker, Mr. Decker.
The next speaker is Hamilton Robinson. Hamilton Robinson.
Next speaker.
The next speaker is Eric Purcell. Commenting on 210434.
Morning.
Good morning. First, I'd like to say good morning to everybody, and especially to our council as well. My name is Eric Purcell. I have 31 years of martial arts experience and training. I was a professional athlete a long time ago. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu black belt, as well as coach for the USA Sambo team, which we've competed around the world representing this amazing country. I state that just to kind of state my experience in the matter before we kind of move on. Sitting here this morning, I've heard just amazing, passionate people describe their love for the birds, obviously. A lot of that going on this morning. And more importantly, their love for education. I've heard so many great stories of some of our youth moving on to college, all the help that they've received, master's degrees, and becoming an asset to our communities was a key word that I believe one of our other councilmen had said as far as education was concerned. And when we talk about education, it's a tough issue in our communities going on when we speak in regards to our law enforcement. And I'm here specifically in regards to help our law enforcement get and gain more education to become assets to our communities. We are all one team, despite our differences and maybe philosophies. We are all together in this community, smaller communities into larger communities, into this city. We all want the best for our sons, our daughters, our mothers, our families. What happens when an officer receives consistent quality training? A trained officer becomes a more capable officer of de-escalating and handling interactions more safely for themselves and for civilians. A trained officer is more confident. A confident officer is more calm. A trained officer can navigate high-stress situations more safely and more efficiently. A trained officer is least likely to have to resort to maximum force. You see, a trained officer is a prepared officer and is a better teammate, which we are all part of that team. I own a mixed martial arts training facility that's been open for over 12 years, where we train everybody from all communities, all walks of life, all religions, Christians, Catholics, Muslims, all colors, ethnicities.
Wrap it up.
We all train together under one community and one love. I implore the people, the community, and council to help our police officers gain the training that they need to help give back and become those assets to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
I
for your
appreciate
testimony.
the time. Thank
We
you.
appreciate your testimony.
The next speaker is Paralee Knight.
Good morning, council members and all of the guests today. Happy Thursday, because a new day isn't promised, and I'm grateful to have it. Happy Black History Month, even though I celebrate being in the beautiful skin of black skin 365 days a year. And to my fellow Eagles fans, I'm happy to celebrate the fact that we're going to the big dance on Sunday, so go Birds. My name is Paralee Knight, Vice President of Community Relations at Wells Fargo, and it is a pleasure to be here today in support of the African American Children's Book Project. Special thanks to Vanessa Lloyd Samgadi for her founding this organization and leading it in a wonderful direction, and to Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson for the resolution to support this special event. Our children, all children, but more specifically the children of this city, and more specifically the children who have had barriers to accessing equal resources, and more specifically black and brown children deserve to have access to quality learning resources and literature and to see themselves represented. Representation is so necessary, for it holds the ability to have significant pieces of oneself reflected back to them. And that mirroring creates a wealth of understanding of oneself that cannot be measured. Representation feels like acceptance. It feels like belonging. For children, it can create the reassurance that it is indeed okay for them to fully occupy the spaces that they're in by simply being themselves. As a leading financial services company, Wells Fargo has a role to play in addressing social, economic, and environmental issues. We strive to utilize our resources and our expertise through our philanthropy and business efforts to help support communities and build a more sustainable and equitable future for all. And so with that, I am proud to be here today to stand to solidify our support of the African American Children's Book Project. Children with access to quality resources become vice presidents at banks. They become council members. They become organizational leaders. They become authors, and the list goes on. So let us continue to support the efforts of bringing in the next generation of those who will carry on the missions of the work that we have deemed so important to have started. Thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Ibi Zoboy.
Good morning, council members, guests, and visitors. My name is Ibi Zoboy, a New York Times bestselling author, award-winning children's book author, and I am here in support of the African American Book Project, the African American Children's Book Fair, headed by the wonderful Vanessa Lloyd Samgadi. And I want to talk about the importance of this book fair and the importance of books for African American children and Black and POC children in general in light of the recent book banning that is happening across the country. The book fair is a safe haven, and we are 20 to 30 authors coming from all over the country right here to the Philadelphia Convention Center to be in community with children from Philadelphia in particular and families coming from the tri-state area. This is vitally important for us authors, for educators, for parents and children in general. I want this book fair to exist 30 years from now. This is the lifeline of children's education and the well-being, and I'm sure many of you here attended the Scholastic Book Fairs or probably the African American Book Fair in general. There is no doubt to the importance of literacy in this country, and there's also no doubt to the importance of knowing American history. And right here, Philadelphia history is the heart of American history, and as a Haitian American, Philadelphia history is also Haitian and American history. Philadelphia is the site of America's first refugee crisis. French planters and their enslaved workers first wanted solace here in Philadelphia while it was the U.S. capital as they were fleeing the impending Haitian Revolution. And this is part of the American history that is being blocked in various libraries and schools across the country. And this is the type of stories that we as authors are writing, and these books will be available at the African American Book Fair this Saturday. And again, this is in support of the African American Book Project and its ongoing celebration of books for children of all races. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Kia Bronson Davis.
Oh, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. What a wonderful, auspicious occasion it is to be recognized in council chambers. I'm sincerely humbled. And I'd like to begin by thanking Council President Clark, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, and Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson for introducing the resolution today and for recognizing the excellence that is the African American Children's Book Fair. While other kids played outside until the street lights came on, I was the kid who was known on my block in Winfield as Kia, that girl who reads and writes all the time. And nothing got a bibliophile like me more excited than to hear my mom say on a bright Saturday morning, "Get your stuff together, we're going to the mall." B. Dalton Bookstore in Granite Row Mall was my favorite happy place. I didn't discover black authors until high school when I read Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, and it was the first time that I read a book with a voice and language that was familiar to me. It was a revelation and an inspiration. Now it's a frustration. Now I wonder what it would have been like to have had literary exemplars who looked like, thought like, and spoke like me. But thanks to Vanessa Lloyd Scambati, black children can attend the African American Children's Book Fair and choose books written by black authors and meet the authors in person. I am proud to say that PICO is a longtime sponsor of the African American Children's Book Fair, and Vanessa makes sure that the PICO table has the most beautiful books to give children for free. It always gives me joy when a black child looks at a book cover and says, "That girl or boy looks like me," and they hug their treasure. Now more than ever, it is important to inspire children to read. Educators worry that the pandemic and the shift to virtual learning could exacerbate existing gaps in literacy rates, largely among socioeconomic and racial lines. So I'd like to thank Vanessa Lloyd Scambati for her incredible vision to create the African American Children's Book Project and for her steadfast leadership. I want to thank my dear friends and my colleagues at PICO who are here today. I am so fortunate to have all of you in my life. I'm eternally grateful to Ramona Risco Benson and her leadership. I also appreciate the Philadelphia school educators at Gompers, Lamberton, Central High School who helped me foster my love of learning. To my husband, Douglas, thank you for being here. And I want to express my love to my wonderful parents who have provided me with the books that have shaped my life. And in closing, I want to thank and encourage all of you to attend the African American Children's Book Fair and bring a child to experience the magic of reading. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Vanessa Lloyd Scambati.
Buongiorno, come stai? Io stai bene qui a Philadelphia. Okay, I'm from Philly, okay, but I know how to rock another language. And it's through my efforts as a young child to explore the world around me that I ended up in Italy, learning to speak fluent Italian and working as a journalist. And now I'm here in my hometown, and people often say to me, "You want to live in Philly?" I love Philadelphia. This is a great city. And the African American Children's Book Project started in 1992, and it's through the efforts of Catherine Gilmore Richardson, Kenyatta Johnson, Curtis Jones, Jamie Gautier, and Cindy Bass, and our president, Darrell Clark, that have helped to support this effort. When people say black people don't read, I'm thinking to myself, they've never been to Philadelphia. First Saturday in the month, and we're now in the second because we're in the big house at the Pennsylvania Convention Center, you see lines of people who come to celebrate reading. There's no singing, there's no dancing. It is all about books. Recently, Visit Philly, I reached out to them for a donation, and they said, "Well, we've given you $5,000 over 31 years. And I said, "And?" because people don't understand the work that we're doing. We bring nationally recognized authors and illustrators into Philadelphia. E.B. Zaboy is one of the top authors in this country. She recently won an American Library Association award, newly minted, for her most recent book. And here's the really wonderful thing. It doesn't cost anything. When children walk in the door, they own a book. They don't have to purchase a book. We give away free books to educators, children, and caregivers, because reading really does open up a world of opportunities. I also want to acknowledge Ramona Risco Benson, who is one of the first people at PICO to make sure that we had funding. And again, Paralee Knight, you want to stand up? Because Paralee Knight just became the regional advocate for the project. And even though Wells Fargo is focusing on home ownership, she said, no, we got to continue to support this effort. And I'll tell you a short story, and I will take my seat. We had the book fair at Community College, and there was this woman with 2 kids and a man just following me around. She had a book. It's called I Love My Hair. And I said to her, it's a classic, I said, both the author and illustrator are over there, and they'll sign your book. And she said to me, no, I wanted to thank you. And I said, thank me? Well, you're welcome. And anybody who knows me is like I'm running a mile a minute in my stilettos. So needless to say, she said, I wanted to thank you because when I was a kid, my family was homeless, and we were in and out of shelters. But we came here every year. You gave us a free book. She said, there was no face painting. And I walked around, and I was like all the other kids. She said, I'm in college, and I'm raising a family of readers. So you never know the impact. She said, every time we move from shelter to shelter, home to home, I had a home library. And that's what we're advocating. Because, folks, a book opens up a world of opportunities. And forget about ban books. You can't ban a book if you're buying a book.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Ogbonna Higgins, commenting on 230062.
Morning.
Hey, great morning, everyone. Ogbonna Higgins, H-A-G-I-N-S. Of course, there should be justice in policing and on a national level. But how about some justice for the city? How about justice for the youth in this city? How about justice for the seniors in this city? How about justice for veterans in this city? How about justice for the economically deprived in this city? We all are happy about the Philadelphia Eagles and their possibility of winning the Super Bowl. But at the same time, remember that Philly is the poorest big city in the nation, and people are hurting. What are you going to do about that, City Council? I am calling for economic justice in this city, and in particular, in the Afro-American community. We have a wealth gap in this city, and the problem is not going to stop by you just sitting on your hands. We have a serious crime and violence problem in this city, directly linked to economic injustice. I'm a retired teacher from Dobbins High School. I'm also a graduate of Dobbins High School. We need justice in our education system in Philadelphia. What about an elected school board? 1867 was the last time that Philadelphia had an elected school board. What is this body doing about that? And finally, based on the people that I speak with throughout this city, they're disappointed in you. So much so that they don't want to vote. I believe the last election, 13% of the registered voters voted for who's in office right now. So, yeah, we need a justice reform for policing in this country, But we have to remember that Philadelphia needs justice, and the people in Philadelphia are hurting, and until someone in this body does something about it, we're going to continue to celebrate the Eagles' victory and all this kind of stuff, but our people are going to be hurting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Victoria Jones Call.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, what a beautiful day. My name is Victoria Jones Call, and I am Yvette's sister. First and foremost, let me give honor to God who makes all things possible. I would like to say a few words regarding the resolution that City Councilwoman Brooks presented. On behalf of our mother, Marie Jones, and the entire Jones family, I would like to thank City Councilwoman Kendra Brooks for honoring my sister with this resolution. Our family is very proud of Yvette. My sister has worked tirelessly for the children, the parents, community members, and staff members of the PFT. She has fought to preserve public education and to ensure that our children receive the best quality education possible in Philadelphia. Thank you all very much for honoring my sister and working with her. She has done and continues to do wonderful things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Lynn Landis, commenting on 210913.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Landis, founder of healthalertphilly.org. I support Resolution 210913, but today I'm also here to talk about COVID. After 3 years of the COVID nightmare, the public deserves a complete review of what happened. For an illness that was not life-threatening for over 98% of the population, the ill-conceived COVID mandates resulted in a massive loss of jobs, businesses, and schooling. Many people are still being forced to take harmful and deadly experimental COVID vaccines in order to keep their jobs. Only Pfizer's, Comirnaty, and Moderna's Spikevax are FDA-approved COVID vaccines. However, they are not sold to the public as far as we know. What the unknowing public gets are the more dangerous and risky experimental vaccines. Big Pharma makes big money off of COVID, while our federal health authorities protect them by overcounting COVID injuries and deaths and undercounting injuries and deaths from the COVID vaccines themselves. Both the COVID illness and COVID vaccines need to be thoroughly investigated, with special attention to microclots in the blood. The soaring rates of strokes, myocarditis, and sudden deaths in vaccinated people around the world are particularly alarming. Recently and disturbingly, the FAA lowered heart health standards for airline pilots, while the military has quietly dropped its COVID vaccine mandates. But enormous damage of untold proportion has already been done by these experimental vaccines. We seriously need an honest accounting of what went wrong and why, or it will happen again and again. You can learn more at healthalertphilly.org. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Rakia Brown.
Morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Rakia Brown, special education teacher for children with autism. I have had many teachers in my lifetime, and each one of them affected my attitude towards education in a unique way. I have developed a different relationship with each and every one of them. And one, of course, I reminisce about some of my teachers more than others. A teacher never knows which student he or she is going to inspire to achieve his or her goals. Sometimes a teacher might feel that he or she has not done much for their student, but that student might feel that particular teacher has highly contributed to his or her attitude about education in a positive way. Furthermore, one of the greatest and unforgettable memories that stand above all my experiences as a student was the time I spent with one of my elementary school teachers, Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones was the most patient teacher I have ever had. She treated her students the way she would have wanted to be treated if she was a student. That was with respect and dignity. With it all, honesty, when I say that Ms. Jones was almost in a good mood every time I seen her, I never once saw her lose patience with her students. Ms. Jones motivated me to wake up 5 days a week, ready for school mentality. I was ready to go. Moreover, it is effortless to mention Ms. Jones' passion and devotion for teaching. She always wanted her students to go to her for help. I became so comfortable with her that I would go to her after school to ask for help with difficult homework assignments. She always had a smile on her face and helped me with an open heart. I could see Ms. Jones' passion for teaching from the very first day I met her. I transitioned to Ms. Jones from another third grade class where, let's say, I wasn't fitting in. We wasn't cohorted. To sum it up, Ms. Jones has shaped my attitude and changed my conception about education. One of the things I have learned from Ms. Jones that has strengthened me and is keeping me going in life is every problem has a solution. You may not find the solution today, baby, but it's there. Ms. Jones' contribution to my self-concept and education is one of the reasons why I have managed to come this far in life. Thank you for being you. I love and appreciate you so much. I am my student's keeper because of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
There are no other speakers on the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our public comment for today. And again, I want to thank everyone who has come down to witness their government in action and participate. We will now move to our calendar and consider the bills and resolutions on our second reading and final passage. Mr. Decker, would you please read the title of resolution number 210434?
A resolution calling on the City of Philadelphia to implement minimum force training for all law enforcement officers.
I see we have Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I do want to explain to the public.
Hold on 1 second, Council. Can we keep the voices down, please, so we can hear? Thank you, Councilman. Like old times, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Councilman O. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Council President. I do want to explain to the public what this issue is about. What is this resolution? So this resolution was introduced May 6, 2021. It's been almost 2 years. The resolution was introduced after the horrendous murder of George Floyd. And it has raised the question of what are we in Philadelphia doing to ensure that that type of thing does not happen. And there have been other responses from other jurisdictions as well, all of them well-intended, but not all of them effective. And I think that is really the crux of the issue, that we cannot solve problems simply by putting words on paper and instructing people what to do. That does not solve the problem totally. It is helpful, but there has to be something more than that. Recently, we watched virtually the same problem occur in Memphis with Tyre Nichols. And as in the case of George Floyd, it is the same issue with Tyre Nichols, that it is not only the police officers to blame who were engaged directly, but those who were standing around watching but ultimately it was their employer, the city, the government, for failing to train them appropriately. That is the responsibility that every employer bears, and particularly any executive should be responsible for the performance of their employees. I'm going to read what this resolution says. It's been a while. Minimum force training provides law enforcement officers with the physical skills and mental perspective to use no force or the least amount of force required when faced with a confrontation under stress. Minimum force training is a valuable tool for law enforcement officers and civilians alike. Police use force and training protocols are particularly salient following high-profile incidents of overly aggressive officer-involved confrontations and unintended shootings. As a result of George Floyd's death, there's a national push to reform laws and protocols pertaining to police conduct and liability. Some of these efforts are questionable and may result in unintended consequences that increase crime and injury. Minimum force training can reduce the number of these tragedies by balancing lethal force responses with more appropriate responses based on the circumstance. Law enforcement officials in neighboring Bucks and Delaware counties have already begun exploring the implementation of minimum force training as a component of its mandatory police officer training. In the best interest of its officers and the public, the Philadelphia Police Department should implement minimum force training to complement traditional lethal force training. In order to implement minimum force training, the city will need to establish a training program for the police department, establish parameters for how officers will be expected to complete the training, and define administrative regulations for receiving compensatory time and other reimbursements for completing the training. New Jersey in 2020 implemented reforms that included training for minimum force. And I'd like to just read a response to New York's sweeping reforms. This is by the president of the Police Benevolent Association criticizing the legislation. Quote, "This sweeping proposal would make it impossible for police officers to determine whether or not we are permitted to use force in any given situation. The only reasonable solution will be to avoid confrontations where force might become necessary." In a city with over 500 murders each year, police are facing complicated situations, and we need more policing. But the public also wants to know what the city has done to better train the officers so they respond appropriate and there are not unintended consequences. The problem with legislation, though well-intended, is that the legislators often are very detached from the realities of what those officers do. A person who is a police officer, their job is to intervene, but there are rules of engagement. If they don't know what the rules of engagement are, one consequence is they don't engage. That is a disservice to the public. You call 911, you're expecting someone to show up, they don't show up, or if they show up, they don't get engaged, don't get involved at the risk to your life or your health. They should be trained. There's no reason not to train your employees. But poorly written legislation, which nonetheless, based on good intention, results in unintended consequences. For example, laws that create confusion result in inaction. That results in too many officers being confused about what to do. Restricting the ability of one officer to, for example, put his body weight or her body weight on someone in an effort to control them may result in 5 officers trying to hold down a person. It may result in unnecessary use of striking. It's not necessary. Laws that discourage more gentle techniques result in more harmful techniques or more aggressive techniques. Laws that prevent physical restraint results in tasering. That's not an acceptable thing either. So legislating things, while it sounds good, is removed from what the officer does. One of the things we can do is we can train the officers in the use of minimal force or no force so that they are more confident, more calm in assessing the situation. We don't want to have unintended consequences. I believe that weak people are not strong. Weak people are not strong. Making a police force full of weak people results in unintended consequences. We need strong people who are well trained and disciplined so that they can intervene. When they intervene and things don't go well, we don't want them to use clubs or sticks or guns. They have to be better trained. Other jurisdictions have implemented minimum force training. The question is, how do you practically do it? How do you train someone and teach someone that when they see a knee on a neck and a person saying, I can't breathe, that they intervene? You can kill that person. Sometimes people can hyperventilate out of anxiety and fear. When they say they can't breathe, they can't breathe. But if you don't know that, if you don't know what you're doing, you can really seriously hurt someone. It is a good idea to train people to understand what's going on, to be aware, because that is part of their duty. They are civilian servants. They serve the civilian population. The issue that appears to be troubling folks is this line here. Some of these efforts are questionable and may result in unintended consequences that increase crime and injury. Yeah, I'll stand by that. If that line were not in here, we could just solve every problem in Philadelphia with legislation. We could have people writing laws and not knowing the exact subject matter that they're talking about, imposing it upon other people. Training, best practices, so that police officers have more than 2 or 3 choices. Typically, while they receive some training in non-lethal techniques, that's like telling someone to ride a bike. You can't teach someone to ride a bike verbally. They have to get on the bike, and they can't ride down a smooth road because they can't ride with confidence. They have to train until it is muscle memory. They don't think about it. They do it, and they're aware of what they're doing so that they do not hurt other people. I've done martial arts my whole life, and I've been in the military, and I've had physical confrontations. I've had deadly confrontations. When someone is in a training facility, when someone looks like they're in distress, they automatically release the hold. That's not a thought process. When someone can't breathe, they release the hold. When someone is gasping, they release the hold. When someone says tap, they release the hold. When someone taps the ground or stomps their foot, they release the hold. There's no thought to it. You immediately release the hold. We're watching George Floyd, and time again, that officer did not remove his knee, and no one around him had him remove his knee for both the officer's sake and George Floyd's sake. It's a tragedy, it's a murder, it's a homicide, but it is a liability on that government for what it failed to do, something we should do, and if the administration does not do it, this legislative body should insist upon it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President, and I want to thank our colleague, Councilmember O, for that explanation and for reading the resolution and pointing out the specific stanzas that we have issue with. But I want to take this body back to the council session on Thursday, May 13th of 2021, wherein on page 73 and 74 of the transcript of the stated meeting, Councilmember O stated that minimum force training is not up to City Council. And I'm quoting, "That is something that is within the purview of the administration and the police commissioner. City Council will not be involved in creating a program. We can have a hearing, then they, meaning the administration, have to create the program." Council President, it is of my belief that this debate and this resolution is gratuitous, it is futile, and it is unnecessary for this august body to continue to entertain. And with that, I call for the question of the day.
Traditionally, call it a question means an immediate action. I do want to recognize, if it's okay with you, Councilwoman, because I see Councilman Jones and Councilman Johnson have had their lights on.
Yes, Council President.
I'm liberal like that, you know.
Right.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. As Chair of Public Safety, responsible in part for dealing with the police department, courts, prisons, I've gone up to the police academy dozens of times, either to talk to Scare Straight or to take tours. In fact, on March 3rd, we have scheduled a tour for all members to go and take a first-hand look at that training. I agree with Kathy Gilmore Richardson that this is a non-binding resolution. The training that I have observed at that academy often is non-lethal. It is judo, it is different forms of hand-to-hand combat. My objection to this resolution lies deep within its wording that suggests after the death of George Floyd that some of the justice reform efforts actually cause more crime. Now, I'm of the opinion that words do matter because words create thought, thoughts create actions. And to connect criminal justice reform to the need for better training are two separate topics that should be detached. Had that clause not been in there, I would be voting for this bill, this resolution today, knowing that the mayor can choose or not choose to honor it. But when you put words in there that, in my opinion, are inflammatory and not provable, I think you do that resolution a disservice. So I would be opposed to this resolution being passed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. So, in the spirit of the legislation, I thought the original intent was to do minimized training. And obviously, if I'm the author of today urging Congress to pass the George Floyd Policing Act, it kind of undercuts what I'm actually advocating for. So I talked to the author of the bill about the wording and so forth, but I won't be voting for the bill. But it also brings to my mind a bigger part of the debate and the conversation. I'm more than willing to work with my colleague on this issue. Training is one thing, but cultural competency in law enforcement is another thing, right? And I remember after the death of George Floyd, and everything is on social media, and for some apparent reason, when there's an African-American male pulled over, there is no level of restraint or professionalism. But when somebody who's, to be quite frank with you, of Caucasian descent that's pulled over, some reason, somehow, there is some level of restraint. And so for me, it's more about the cultural competency and of how our officers engage with African American, particularly young men, secondly, young women. And there were countless times on social media after the death of George Floyd where people showed examples, clear examples, where other individuals who are not African American descent, primarily Caucasian, were very, very aggressive with officers and were given like 10 opportunities to not get shot or murdered. But if you're African American and you say one word back, like, why am I being pulled over? What's the reasoning? You probably won't make it home. And so hopefully we can take this debate from training to also cultural competency and how you engage. And I think the reason why we wanted to focus on hiring officers locally is because a lot of times, and I went to Mansfield University of upstate Pennsylvania, people who do not grow up in the city of Philadelphia, some that come from rural neighborhoods to get jobs here in the city of Philadelphia, some that come from the suburbs that have never been in an urban environment, have a very certain perspective of African American young men. And if you become an officer, you bring those biases and those stereotypes with you to the streets of the city of Philadelphia from a law enforcement standpoint. So hopefully we can elevate this conversation. We talk about training, but most importantly, cultural competency, because an officer from Grays Ferry may view things a little bit different than a person that's recruited from a rural county to police in the city of Philadelphia. And so I wanted to put that on the record because it just brings to my mind, when we talk about police interaction and some people qualifying what's appropriate and what's not, I'm probably one of the key qualifiers because, I'm one of the guys that grew up in the neighborhood, former corner guy, just hanging out with my guys in South Philly, and probably had more interaction with officers than maybe the average individual and kind of know how to deal with them. But for the most part, making sure we're paying attention to the implicit bias that goes along with some of the policing that we see today. And so I just want to put that there, put that on the record, and obviously I won't be voting for the bill.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to agree with my colleagues. I'm going to be a no on this resolution. And the resolution sponsor talked earlier and kind of glanced over some of the clauses in the resolution that people have an issue with. But I just wanted to pause for a minute to make sure that they were read into the record correctly. So those clauses are, whereas, as a result of George Floyd's death, there is a national push to reform laws and protocols pertaining to police conduct and liability, and whereas some of these efforts are questionable and may result in unintended consequences that increase crime and injury. That's not a small thing, right? That not only changes the whole intent of the resolution, it honestly makes me distrust the intent. I don't know what this bill, what this resolution is trying to do. I'm very offended by that, and I will be voting no. And I just wanted to make that very clear.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Appreciate everybody's input. We're going to vote on it. I'll just say that people want police. People want to call 911. They want an answer. They want police. We're having a problem with police. Police not answering the call, not sure what they're going to do. Defund the police, fund the police, all those type of things. If you're going to increase police, you have to equip them. You have to train them. People want police response, but they want to know that the city has done something so that there is a change and that the police are better trained. Yeah, there's all kinds of subjective fears, and unfortunately a lot of it has to do with race, no doubt about it. Someone sees a person with tattoos, they feel more afraid. They see someone with a lot of big hair and a big beard, they get afraid. Someone's got a swastika, they're ready to shoot. Unfortunately, all of these subjective fears, that is natural physiology. It is to save your life. When you believe, however right or wrong you are, that your life is in danger, you enhance that. The way you overcome your natural self-defense instincts is through training, so that you can better gauge and better judge, so that you do not overreact, so that you can react with calmness and objectivity. At the end of the day, whatever this is, it is a resolution, it's not binding, it urges the city to implement, to begin the process of coming up with a practical way to train police so that they are able to make better judgments, comfortable to use no force or minimum force. I will say to what I generally hear is I know that Councilmember Curtis Jones is a boxer. You don't go to the gym for a month and then 10 years later you can step in a ring. You go into the gym and you learn to box and you refine it and you refine it and you refine it. And as you continue to have the experience, your body moves without you thinking. We need for people under stress to be trained so that when their life is in danger, they do not unnecessarily take somebody else's life. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. The question that's not binding until there's a motion, is my understanding. So there has to be a motion on the resolution. The councilman just spoke, he didn't make the motion. Councilman, you want to make the motion? So we
can be adopted.
All right, there you go. Call to the question. I'm assuming we will want a roll call. You asked for a roll call also? You don't need a roll call. All right. I don't think so either, Council. Has it been second? It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Those opposed? It's pretty close. No, I'm just kidding, guys. I'm sorry. A little levity. Ayes have it. Motion and resolution is disapproved. Thank you. Mr. Decker, what? The nays have it. I'm sorry. I was wondering why people were looking at me like that, right? I'm sorry. The long debate kind of got me off track. Look, it's an interesting day. We're going to do an Eagles cheers after the council session to get back on track. You know what I'm talking about? All right, resolution is denied. Mr. Decker, please read the title, resolution number.
Be recorded as aye on the
Chair.
On that close vote.
Let the record reflect that Councilman O'Neill. Anybody else? Councilman O. And Councilman Driscoll, do you want to be voted as a nay?
I thought I was in the queue there earlier.
Well, when they call to the question, it's time that you got to vote.
Okay.
Yeah. Once he made the motion, the rules require that the vote be taken initially, but I can always recognize you if you want to
I would like to be recognized.
Explain your vote.
Look, we had a lot of healthy discussion on this, and it's going to be a topic we're going to talk a lot about. But what we didn't talk about today is we have a police officer in the hospital that was shot twice yesterday, and I would just like this body for a moment of silence and quiet prayer for that gentleman and his family that was protecting all of us in the city of Philadelphia yesterday.
All right. Can we get a moment of silence on behalf of the recovery of the police officer that was shot twice, that is in hopefully much better condition than today. A moment of silence, please. Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. President.
To be recognized on,
You want to be recognized?
yes.
Chair
I had
recognizes
pushed the
Council-
button before he passed it. I just want to say that maybe Councilman O is from the privileged society that has not had to have the talk with their children. As President Biden mentioned in his State of the Union address, I have 2 black children that live here in the city of Philadelphia, and I have had to have the talk with my children about if you get pulled over, get stopped, turn your light on, don't say anything, don't reach for anything, put your hands on the dashboard or on the steering wheel, and don't make any sudden moves. So that was the reason that last resolution would have also received
Okay,
a
all
no from
right.
it.
What we have traditionally not done is be specific about criticism of members. So we try
Yes.
to keep this to core. We criticize the issue, the policy, but we kind of leave that personal stuff. So.
Thank you.
All right, but thank you. Thank you for your words. We won't move on from that, if it's okay with you all. Thank you, because we do have. Vote has been taken. You know, let's move on. All right. Thank you. Mr. Decker, 230062.
A resolution urging the U.S. Congress to pass H.R. 1280, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Johnson for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Nay. Let the record reflect that Councilman O'Neill has voted nay on resolution. And the motion passes and the resolution is adopted. Can we clear this? Thank you. Mr. Decker, 230063.
A resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2252 Hope Street and 2309 Palethorpe Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Lozada.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 230068.
A resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Independence Mall urban renewal area, unit number 4, identified by house number and street address as 217 through 253 North 9th Street.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 220689.
A resolution appointing McQuan Brinkley to the Board of Directors for the Old City Special Services District.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 220690.
A resolution appointing Jeffrey Brown to the Board of Directors for the Old City Special Services District.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
I move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 221036.
A resolution appointing Paul Badger to the Board of Directors of the Center City District.
One more time, the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 221037.
A resolution appointing Valeria Beers to the Board of Directors of the Center City District.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Councilman Johnson, did you want to be recognized?
Sure, Council President. I just want to take a quick moment of personal privilege before the time gets away from us to acknowledge visitor in our chamber today, the current whip of the General Assembly of the House of Representatives of Pennsylvania, soon to be Majority Appropriations Chairman, my state representative of the 186th Legislative District, Jordan Harris. Just want to acknowledge him. He's here today.
Hey, Whip, sounds good to be called the Majority Whip, huh? That's what I'm talking about. Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Ms. Decker, did I read 221-037?
You did, Mr. President.
All right, next. 221-038.
A resolution appointing Anna Boney to the Board of Directors of the Center City District.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion passes and the resolution is adopted. We have no bills today, so Mr. Decker, would you please read any additional resolution?
A resolution also naming the 700 block of North Broad Street between Fairmount Avenue and Brown Street, Reverend Dr. Herbert H. Lusk II Way, to honor the outstanding Christ-driven legacy of the senior pastor of the Greater Exodus Baptist Church and CEO of People for People Incorporated. Introduced today by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson on behalf of Council President Clark.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President Clark. On your behalf, I move the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion passes and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring the African American Children's Book Project on the occasion of its 31st annual African American Children's Book Fair, introduced today by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. I move the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and celebrating Philadelphia Eagles season sports performance associate Autumn Lockwood, the first black woman to coach in the Super Bowl, introduced today by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. In memory of my cousin, the first African American in the Football Hall of Fame, Emlyn Tennell, I move the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Councilwoman, I have to ask you about that trophy on your desk. I've been looking at it all day.
This is Emlyn Tennell, the first African American in the Football Hall of Fame, former New York Giants player, former Green Bay Packer coach recruited by Vince Lombardi, author of a book, Footsteps of a Giant, and U.S. Coast Guard hero who saved the lives of two of his shipmates in the war.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome trophy. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. You may want to take pictures with that afterwards. Mr. Decker, go ahead.
A resolution honoring and congratulating the Champion of the Week, Monica Miraglio, for the work of her company, Girl Build, which trains women on how to renovate, design, and finance their own home improvement projects, introduced today by Councilman Thomas.
Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I encourage everybody to check out this initiative, and I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
And a resolution congratulating the Philadelphia Eagles on their National Football Conference Championship win and challenging the City Council of Kansas City to bet that the Eagles will beat the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57, introduced today by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Can we acknowledge the affirmative passing of this resolution with a Go Birds on 3?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You ready?
1, 2, 3.
Go Birds! That resolution is enthusiastically adopted. Awesome. Thank you.
And a resolution authorizing the Joint City Council Committees on Public Safety and Education to hold public hearings to examine the status of capital programs for infrastructure repair as well as for toxic hazard remediation in Philadelphia's public schools, introduced today by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for its adoption.
Second.
It's moved properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Joint City Council Committees on Public Safety and Education to hold public hearings to examine the School District of Philadelphia's use of in-school and out-of-school suspension, as well as other disciplinary tactics to understand what actions merit such a penalty, introduced today by Councilman Jones.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Jones.
I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Joint City Council Committees on Public Safety and Education to hold public hearings to examine statistics for in-school violence protocols, student-to-student violence, parent-to-parent violence, and teacher safety, introduced today by Councilman Jones.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities to hold hearings on the status of Hilco Redevelopment Partners' proposed Bellwether District Development Project, formerly known as the Sunoco Refinery Site, introduced today by Councilman Johnson.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring Philadelphia artist King Saladin for his artistic contributions to Philadelphia and for his community advocacy through his foundation, Create, Motivate, Inspire, introduced today by Councilman Johnson.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing Yvette Denise Jones, a caring educator, fierce advocate, and a lifelong community builder who has tirelessly fought for the children, teachers, and parents of Philadelphia and for schools that meet the needs of the communities that they serve, introduced today by Councilwoman Brooks.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution also naming 53rd Street between Parish Street and Westminster Avenue, Ethel Hegemon Lyle Way, in honor of Ethel Hegemon Lyle, principal, founder of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the oldest Greek letter organization for her college-trained African-American women in the United States of America, introduced today by Councilwoman Gauthier.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to first thank the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc., specifically the Omega chapter of Philadelphia, for speaking in support of the resolution, also naming 53rd Street for the sorority's principal founder, Ethel Hegemon Lyle. I'd also like to welcome all the members of AKA who will be coming to the city for their regional conference in March. And I'd also like to thank our own Stephanie Marsh from the Managing Director's Office for her collaboration in drafting and introducing this resolution, and for all of the hard work that she is undertaking to bring the AKAs here in March. And with that, Council President, I call for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our calendar for the day. And speeches on behalf of the minority. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President, and I take no offense from my colleague, Councilmember Vaughn. I understand what you're saying, but I do want to respond, not in a personal way, because I think underlying that is that there's a detachment to understanding the plight of poor people and oppressed people if you're of my opinion. My opinion is not a privileged opinion. My opinion is poor people's opinion. And I'd like to explain that. I take issue with the property tax. I take issue with the assessment on the poor. I take issue with the soda tax on the poor. I take issue with the disparity of education, not in the state, in this city. There's no greater disparity of education in unconstitutional, unlawful schools than in Philadelphia itself. We don't have to look at other school districts. I take issue with the lack of jobs and affordable housing. I take issue with the gentrification based on the improper assessment of properties and placing that upon the poor. I take issue with all of these things. And I take issue with the failure to provide services to poor communities. You must serve. You must serve equally. There's no group of people more subject to murder, harm, violence, and fear, a poor quality of life, and inability to go to the library, stand at the bus station, go to the playground, get on the trolley, or get on the bus than the poor. I'm not from a privileged background. I went to Longstreth Elementary School. I went to Turner Middle School. I live at 58th and Thomas Avenue, as I always have. A young man was murdered on the corner of my street. His friend ran into my backyard. I was stabbed in front of my house. That's not the worst thing that happened to me. I had a choice to take his life or to take a step back. Because I have training and because I am calm, I take a step back. Not everybody's going to take a step back, because when you take a step back, you lose your opportunity to strike back. It is training and calmness and a willingness to put it in the hands of God that you take a step back and see what will happen. What happens might not be very good. I went to a Christian school because I could not go to public school. My friends in Longstreth and in Turner Middle School were in rival gangs. They murdered each other. So I'm quite familiar with that. I see them from time to time. They have spent a lot of time in jail. There are those who are drug addicted. We have every problem in this city on my block. I'm very familiar. I have had guns pointed at me on many occasions. I've confronted people because when you live in a neighborhood where you call the police and they don't come, either you're going to deal with the drug dealers or they're going to take over your block. And that's the fact. There are a lot of people in this city that do not want to own guns, but they bought guns. The highest percentage of people buying guns are women, particularly black women. 11,000 people apply for gun carry permits. That's before the pandemic. Now it's like 75,000. When the police do not respond, when people are afraid of the police, hey, maybe some of the reactions that we're getting is because people are afraid and they should not be on all sides. So my perspectives are simply not because they come from privilege. I have perspectives, and anyone who has a perspective doesn't mean they're rich or poor. What I will say is my independence and my uniqueness in thought and idea, my accountability and transparency, because I come from a poor community, because I come from a community of outcasts. I went to college. I went to law school. I served in the district attorney's office. I quit and joined the Army. Who does that? I jumped out of airplanes. I did free legal services. I wanted to be a rich lawyer. I have not practiced law in 11 years to serve in this body. This body has great things that it can do. This is a great city full of fantastic people. We have a wonderful opportunity to answer their needs. We have very different opinions about how we help people and what it means to be humane. I disagree with so much of this city. I look at Kensington Avenue as the most inhumane area of this city, but it is created by the policies of this mayor and a lot of privileged, do-gooder rich people. Now, there's nothing more inhumane than Kensington Avenue, and it needs to be cleaned up. And if it were cleaned up, we would be saving so many more people. You know, I don't have a privileged background. I have a poor person's background, and I have rumbled for everything that I have. But my independence and my thoughts, they're not from being rich. They're just from being poor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Speech on behalf of the majority. Chair recognizes Councilman Harity.
Council President, this week the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania finally affirmed what we have already known. The funding for Philadelphia schools is unconstitutional. The system of funding our schools through property tax have left our students disadvantaged compared to other counties. On average, we spend about $12,000 per student in Philadelphia, but in Chester, Montgomery, and Delaware counties, that number is around 24. All that money has been used to continually benefit those students at the expense of our students. It is a line that every elected official from Philadelphia has said while in office. So I applaud the decision of Judge Jubileer because it finally gives our schools the chance to obtain the funding necessary to provide the best education possible for our students. As I know many other members of this body applaud the court's decision, it's important to remember what Judge Jubileer said, and I quote, "It is now the obligation of the legislature, the executive branch, and the educators to make the constitutional promise a reality in this Commonwealth. As elected officials, it's important that we remember that these court decisions are only effective as long as we advocate for them. It's up to us to ensure whoever is in power in Harrisburg remembers their constitutional duty to provide equal opportunity for all children of Philadelphia." So I was very happy to see that what I've been saying all along was true, and that our kids are being cheated. And I am so glad that now we can make a difference in these kids' lives and maybe give them the same opportunity that they're getting in other counties in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Great ruling from the Commonwealth Court. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to join my colleagues in praising the Commonwealth Court for declaring Pennsylvania's funding system unconstitutional. This ruling is a monumental victory for our young people. As a member of City Council's Education Committee and a mother, I've seen in painstaking detail the harm state lawmakers have caused by shortchanging our children out of their fair share of school resources. And as a City Council representative for many working-class Black and brown neighborhoods, I know how this systemic underfunding has forced public schools in already disadvantaged communities to endure conditions unimaginable in affluent areas. For instance, during the worst pandemic we've seen in over a century, Paul Robeson High School had no functional ventilation, and their electrical grid was so outdated it couldn't even handle window air conditioning units. After many of their peers passed out and had nosebleeds due to the blistering heat inside classrooms, students at Robeson took matters into their own hands. They successfully convinced the school district to update their electrical grid and install air conditioning, but there isn't enough money to fully renovate the school. And on MLK Day this year, I visited Lee Elementary, where parents, students, and school staff gave up their day off to beautify and repair their school themselves, soliciting money from the community for the necessary supplies. It should not be the responsibility of our students, parents, and teachers to ensure that their young people have a building where they can learn with dignity. But unfortunately, Robeson and Lee are not outliers in West and Southwest Philadelphia. They're the norm. During a time when we're contending with both significant learning loss due to the COVID-19 pandemic and historic levels of gun violence, we need fully staffed schools in good condition to keep our young people safe and put them on a path to success. And we need the financial resources to maintain and operate all school district assets, including non-traditional learning environments like the Sayre Pool. But the unconstitutional underfunding of our schools by Harrisburg has made it incredibly challenging for the school district to hire enough teachers, let alone keep extracurricular resources online. And as a result, Philadelphia's young people have fallen behind academically. In 2021, 36% of our city's public school students met state standards in reading, and in math, this number drops to 1 in 5. There's a direct line from these statistics to the fact that for every dollar the main line receives, we only get 60 cents. Every child deserves to go to a school where they will be able to propel forward in their lives, but due to unconstitutional underfunding, this has not been the case. So it's no wonder that across Philly, and even within the 3rd District, parents fight over seats at magnet and high-performing schools. This is not sustainable, and it is not just. Every student should have a desirable school right in their own neighborhood, because Philadelphia can't move forward if only a fraction of our children receive an adequate education. I am optimistic that this landmark victory for our children will help us to finally turn the tide. We owe it to our students to provide them with a high-quality education that pulls them out of poverty, because these young people are the future of our city, our commonwealth, and our nation. And if we want Philadelphia to thrive, they must thrive. I call on state lawmakers to immediately give our public schools the money they deserve. Harrisburg must also give us damages to make up for decades of underfunding so the school district isn't stuck playing catch-up for the state's injustices. Because this commonwealth and nation has a history of denying the Black community the resources they deserve, preventing us from achieving our piece of the American dream. Thank you so much to the Public Interest Law Center, Education Law Center, PA Schools Work, and many, many children and teachers and parents and activists whose years of hard work made this landmark court ruling possible. I look forward to working with my fellow Education Committee members and this entire body to hold the state legislature accountable for the money our young people are owed. We will not let them cheat our children any longer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Lozada.
Thank you, Council President. I join all of my colleagues in supporting more access and better opportunities for all of our kids. There was a public safety incident at Elkins Elementary School this week. Elkins is in my district. I want to recognize the amazing work of Principal Charlotte Gillian, the Elkins teachers and staff, and Philly Police for handling it swiftly and smoothly under the circumstances. I have heard parents' concerns. I take these concerns seriously as a councilwoman and also as a mother. No one should have to be afraid for their children's safety anywhere, especially not at school. Fortunately, everyone was safe in this incident, but that could have turned out differently. I'm committed to working with school leadership, public safety officials, my colleague Councilman Isaiah Thomas as chair of the Education Committee, and others to ensure that all children are safe. We will review the district safety policies, including policies to protect children while at school and while traveling to and from school, and also the district's family notification policies. Parents and family members, I ask you to engage in your kids' school safety process and to continue to connect with council members with any concerns. My staff and staff at Elkins remain dedicated to serving you for fighting for the best outcomes for your children. Councilman Isaiah Thomas, I am extremely grateful for your presence and for immediately responding to the needs of Elkins. In the 7th Council District, we've experienced public safety issues in 3 other schools. This is alarming. We need to respond. Access to education, equitable education is extremely important. And so I appreciate all of your action as it relates to improving the quality of education for the children of the 7th and of the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Good afternoon. At this point, Council President, I try not to do this when we have these longer council sessions, but it's important that I just put a couple things on the record. First and foremost, thank you to Councilmember Driscoll for his remarks around the officer that was shot today. I know myself and this entire council body are praying for that officer's healthy recovery, as well as praying for the family and other officers and people who might have been traumatized by that incident. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues, Councilmember Harity and Councilmember Gaudier. We as an education committee has already sent the first correspondence to our state partners, and of course there'll be more correspondence because the time couldn't be any better to try to get the proper funding that we need as it relates to our schools. This week we had a number of incidents involving guns and children. And when these things take place, as elected officials, I encourage us not to tweet about it, not to post about it, not to talk too much about it, but more or less show up and respond to it. And I want to commend the district council members. Councilmember Jones, he's a veteran. He's been doing this. So we're going to give you, we thank you, Councilmember. But Councilmember Lozada, who just got into city council and is hitting the ground running, I was thoroughly impressed with her team over at the 7th District. Principal Charlotte was absolutely amazing. Our law enforcement officers, the climate staff there. Again, when these incidents take place, we don't post about it, we don't talk about it, we just show up. Because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we're there for our educators, our teachers, our administrators, but most importantly, our parents and our children. And I couldn't be more proud of the things that I seen 9 a.m., the day after the incident took place. And I have to also thank Mr. Bethel and his team as well, too, because those parents, that community, and that district council member, they responded. And they responded in a way where as though I believe that this negative incident and this traumatic experience is going to turn into a positive that is going to really enrich the children that attend that school. So again, Councilmember Jones, thank you. But Councilmember Lozada, so proud of you in the way that you've hit the ground running and the way that your team responded to that crisis this week. You should be commended. And we're going to continue to do the work because at the end of the day, the number of children bringing guns to school is alarming. When we first came out of the pandemic, one of the main things that I pushed was for us to invest in prevention-based initiatives. And I'm going to continue to push us as a legislative body as well as the administration to assure that our young people have as many positive experiences, as many options as possible to assure that they stay out of trouble. With that being said, adding to that list, February 25th, we're having a huge gaming event. This is the first gaming event of its kind. When we think about Philadelphia, we think of us as a city of eds, meds, and beds. We have all type of phenomenal food and music festivals, but at the end of the day, gaming and tech is a new industry. We see what's happening in Councilmember Gaudier's district, as well as part of Councilmember Jones's with biotech and how medicine is taking off, and that's becoming the new attachment to the brand of Philadelphia being a city of eds, meds, and beds. Well, the next attachment to that is gaming. We want gaming to be the place, we want Philadelphia to be the place where folks who are into the gaming industry can come to and can excel in that profession, because it's more than just picking up a controller and playing with your friends. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry that can put young people in a position to change their lives and the lives of their family. So Saturday, February 25th, we're having the first ever gaming event in the city of Philadelphia, and the goal is to turn this into an annual festival where young people all across the country can come to Philadelphia, participate in gaming conferences, gaming competition, and learn what it means to be a professional in that industry. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, colleagues. Go Birds.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman, isn't that like international now? I recall seeing on TV they were showing that people from one country were playing people at another country, and it was like, wow, that's awesome.
100% international industry, but I think more importantly, when we understand gamers who are extremely successful, Council President, they make more than all 17 of us combined. Wow. And that's the reality of it. So at the end of the day, this is an industry that my 10-year-old son knows much more about than I do. Yeah. But when you think about gaming, What city do you identify as the gaming city? Right now, the market is still open.
Okay.
Why not Philadelphia? What city should be better than Philadelphia to be the gaming hub in the entire United States? Again, we're known for our Eds, Meds, and Beds. We have great music and food festivals. It's time to now add gaming to that list along with the biotech industry.
Awesome.
Thank you, Council President.
We'll be shortly having a conversation with the administration on the FY 24 budget, so I'm sure that'll be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Vaughn.
Thank you, Council President. I want to commend Commissioner Danielle Outlaw on her leadership. While I don't want anyone to lose their job for good performance, I do believe that if you do bad things in your job, you should be dismissed. And I am grateful that the Inquirer reported that Captain Nasheed Akil resigned as a result of his misconduct. And lastly, I just want to say that politicians and diapers should be changed often for the same reason.
I'm gonna say okay, like I did when that guy played that guy was playing the guitar last week. Okay, okay. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Okay. I just want to go back to comments made by my colleagues about public education and the news that we have finally been affirmed that we are being cheated here in the city of Philadelphia, that a child in Overbrook, zip code 19131, gets a different education than the child 1 mile away at Lower Merion because of the inequity in funding. But I want to take a deeper dive into what this really means. For every generation that we allow that inequity to exist, you create an expressway from school to prison pipeline. Every time that they don't get the proper counseling, the proper after-school programming and tutoring, that happens. By the time a kid does not read, by the 4th grade, they know how many cells to build by the time they're 18. So I kind of endorse Member Gardier's point of compensation for the burden of that inequity. I want to tell you, too, that some of our state house members have consistently fought for education. Member Johnson being up there once upon a time, and Member Parker and others, they fought the good fight. They got overwhelmed by real Republicans. But what we have to say is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But I will caution you, there was another landmark ruling that said desegregation with all deliberate speed. And that took maybe another 40 years before it ever was actualized. Well, I will reinforce one thing. Our young people don't have that time. We introduced education resolutions on infrastructure, on discipline, on school to prison, on those things for that very reason. I heard the superintendent say, and we're giving him a fair shot to get his legs under him, but he said, well, give me some time and let's take our time. Well, some of us in North Philly, in West Philly, in South Philly, don't have the time. We need help right now, immediately, to first stop the bleeding and then create the long-term cure. And we are going to, the Public Safety Committee, along with the Education Committee, are going to be laser beam focused, as Blondell Reynolds Brown used to say, on this issue. Because if there was one issue that could change Philadelphia's condition, it is schools.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. That concludes our speeches on behalf of the minority and the majority. And with that, the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the council stand adjourned until Thursday, February 16th at 10 a.m. tentatively.
Thank you. Yeah, you know what? You got a point. Hopefully, we will not be here on Thursday. All right. There's been more than a second. The council stand adjourned until Thursday, February 16, 2023. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, see you all on Friday.
You would have left an hour ago.